The dry period is an important resting period for the dairy cow where fresh udder tissue is formed in readiness for the lactation, and it provides an important opportunity to rid the udder of many potential pathogens that can cause mastitis. Management of the cow during the dry period must not be neglected, as new infections of E. coli and Streptococcus uberis in particular can occur during this period and not become apparent as clinical mastitis until later in the lactation. Therefore, management during the dry period and pre-calving period is especially important in health and productivity of the cows in the long run. Even in this century, when petroleum based mechanical and electrical equipment has replaced animals in advanced countries, draught animals still play an important role in developing countries and will continue to do so for many years. The major thrust in draught animal management is for improvement of the productivity through scientific and technological inputs. Draught animal power will continue to be the main source of energy for many years to come in the developing countries. Proper care and management would result in better return to owners of draught animals and to society as a whole. Now we will see the definition of dry cow. Dry cows are those which are not producing milk. Most cows need a dry period between lactations. Very often, management neglects of these animals may cause decrease in the profit in due course of time. Therefore, proper management of these categories of dairy animals is very essential. We will see the care and management of dairy cows. The methods of drying off. There are three methods of drying off the animals. Complete cessation. This method is followed for cows with low milk yield of less than 5 kg per day and free from mastitis. If the animal is left unmilked, milk will be filled in the udder and then get reabsorbed. Intermittent milking. This method is useful for cows with heavy milk yield of less than 10 kg daily. One time milking is first skipped, then 2 times, and gradually the animal is milked once in few days. Simultaneously, the animal's feed intake is gradually reduced to decrease the milk synthesis in the udder. Incomplete milking. This method is useful for cows with moderate milk yield. The principle is same as the intermittent method. Some amount of milk is left in the udder to get reabsorbed and reduce the milk synthesis. Importance of dry period. A cow in dry period should be fed a well balanced ration during this period for the maintenance of the cow in healthy and fit conditions. Growth of the animals if the cow is pregnant. Growth of the fetus. For the production of colostrum when the cow calves next. Forming sufficient reserves of nutrients in the body of the cow for ensuring lactation. The recently calved high producing cow is unable to eat through feed to support her milk production. This means that she should have enough reserves of stored nutrition to be drawn to tide over the period of heavy demand in the early lactation, during which period of cows loses weight. Many of the problems resulting in ketosis, displaced abomasum, fatty liver, retained placenta, prolapse, etc. can be minimized by resorting to all roughage feeding during the dry period. The roughage should be tough enough to stimulate and restore rumen muscle tone. During dry period, cows can be fed only good quality green fodder with 1 to 2 kilograms of concentrate. Just a week or two before freshening, one should start feeding the cows with high milk production, increasing the quantity of concentrates to challenge them to produce at the maximum level. This challenge feeding will condition her digestive system for the increased amount of concentrates of early lactation and provide enough nutrients to initiate lactation on a higher place. During the dry period, cows should receive enough of high quality green fodder to provide enough of the precursor for vitamin A. They also need salt, calcium, phosphorus and whenever deficiencies occur, other minerals. When leguminous roughages are fed in large quantity, all that is needed is a source like wheat bran. But when non-leguminous roughages predominate, sources of calcium and phosphorus like bone meal or dicalcium phosphate may be added to the ration. Important aspects to be considered during dry period: the health of the rumen. The rumen is vital to milk production and cow health. Free fatty acids that are produced and for the most part of absorbed in the rumen can supply up to 80% of the cow's energy needs. A substantial proportion of dairy cows experience an incidence of subclinical ruminal acidosis, that is pH ranges from 5.2 to 6 during lactation. For a healthy and productive rumen, it is essential that the rumen pH remains between 6 and 6.5. To recover and renew epithelium of rumen, it needs a ration that is high in fiber and low in rapidly degradable carbohydrates. Next, we will see the health of udder. Understanding the changes taking place in the udder is essential to manage the dry period. From the standpoint of udder physiology, the dry period can be divided into three stages. Active involution. This is the first 2 weeks after drying off. Milk is absorbed, immunity suppressed and passive immunity installed. Daily production peaks at day 4. There is a high risk of intramammary infections and mastitis during the involution stage. Steady state. During this state, there is no involution, no milk production, and the milk is secreting epithelial cells renew. Colostrum formation. This period usually lasts about 2 weeks before calving and is identifiable by the secretion of milk or colostrum. Towards the calving date, milk pressure builds up, putting pressure on the keratin plug and causing milk leakage. Clean environment. Keep the environment clean with special attention to mastitis pathogens. Use practical procedures for cleaning and disinfecting, such as using high volumes of clean bedding or calving on pasture instead of washing and disinfecting between calving. The fourth one is minimize stress for the cow. Low stress and no stress housing systems for dry cows are a part of well designed buildings. Ensure there is enough individual space for the cow around calving with space for her to lie down. The fifth one is hoof health. Hoof and horn grows with a speed of 4.5 millimeter per month. The hoof sole is 7 to 12 millimeter thick. After a 60-day, that is 2 months dry period, the complete hoof sole will be renewed. Around drying off, hoofs should be checked and trimmed and treated if necessary. Treatment of digital dermatitis often requires a second treatment. The sixth one is administration of antibiotics. Dry cow antibiotic treatment aims to prevent new udder infections in the early dry period and can eliminate subclinical infections persisting from the previous lactation. There are several guidelines to follow when administering dry cow antibiotics to prevent mastitis bacteria from being accidentally introduced into the teat. Before administration of the antibiotic, teats should be dipped in an effective germicidal solution and cows should be penned up for 30 minutes after treatment to allow teat sphincters to close before they are allowed to lie down. Now we will see the management of dry cows. In the management of dry cows, the cow should be dry for 45 to 60 days. The date to begin dry period is calculated back from projected date of calving. Conditioning for the dry period is done during last few weeks of lactation. Research shows that body fat is replaced most efficiently during late lactation than during the dry period. Cows should not be too fat or too thin at the end of the lactation. Adjusting the grain to roughage ration can control weight. Give thin cows a higher percentage of grain, that is concentrates, and fat cows less grain. We should follow proper procedure to dry off the cow to avoid udder problems. Following method, the steaming up is one of the method. The dry cows are fed in a nutritionally proper manner to get prepared for calving is called as steaming up. Separate dry cows from the milking herd. They may be grouped with the bred heifers. Allow dry cows to get plenty of exercise. Care and precautions must be taken for prevention of udder edema. Heaving, feeding or steaming up sometimes predispose the animals to edema. First calvers are more prone to edema. Prenating, that is milking before calving in heavy yielder, is sometimes practiced, but it is not recommended. Generally, the period of dry days are for local breeds 90 to 120 days from the date of drying to the date of calving. For exotic breeds, it will be 305 days, and for cross breeds, it will be 240 to 270 days. The risk of mastitis shortly after drying off is relatively high, especially if dry cow treatment is eliminated due to leaking. Once milking is stopped, teats must be cleaned and dry cow treatment applied immediately. Depriving cows of water and feed at the beginning of the dry cow period is stressful and unnecessary. Okay, let us see the definition of a work bullock. A work bullock is also known as an axe in India. Is a bovine trained as a draft animal. In plural, we call as axen, or commonly castrated adult male cattle. Castration makes the animals easier to control. Bulls, also called as intact males, may also be used as draft animals in some areas. We will see the care and management of work bullock. Work bullock are used for ploughing, for transport, that is for pulling carts, hauling wagons and even riding, for threshing grains by trampling, and for powering machines that grain or supply irrigation among other purposes. Oxen are usually yoked in pairs. Light work such as carting household items on good roads might require just one pair, while for heavier work further pairs would be added as necessary. It is estimated that the annual total energy required for agriculture sector in India is 44 million horsepower energy for both stationary and tillage. This energy is met by different sources. around 11.8 million horsepower by human power, 28 million horsepower by livestock, 4.2 million horsepower by electricity and fuel based machinery, 80 million work animals, 70 million work bullocks and 8 million horsepower by buffaloes. Some important aspects of care and management of work bullock are: the number one is training. Oxen are thought to have first been harnessed and put to work around 4000 BC. Working oxen are taught to respond to the signals of the T-master, master or ox driver. These signals are given by verbal command and body language, reinforced by a goad, whip or a stick of suitable length. Verbal commands for draft animals vary widely throughout the world. The next one is size of bullock. Bullock owners favor larger animals for their ability to do more work. Bullock are therefore usually of larger breeds and are usually males because they are generally larger. Females can also be trained as oxen, but as well as being smaller are often more valued for producing calves and milk. Bulls are also used in many parts of the world, especially Asia and Africa. Now we will see shoeing. Working oxen usually require shoes. Since their hoofs are cloven, 2 shoes or ox queues are required for each hoof. Unlike the single shoe of a horse, ox shoes are usually of approximately half moon or banana shape, either with or without hockings, and are fitted in symmetrical pairs to the hoofs. Unlike horses, oxen are not easily able to balance on their legs while shoeing is being done. Therefore, shoeing is generally done by throwing the ox to the ground and lashing all 4 feet to a heavy wooden tripod until the shoeing was complete. Healthy hoofs are hard, black and waxy. The 2 halves should be even. The cleft of hoof should be narrow. The hoof should be prepared first and shoe must made to fit the natural shape of hoof. Periodicity of shoeing can be generally considered once in a month for road work and once in 2 months for field works. Now we will see the feed and nutrition. Feed and nutrition of draught animals are generally inadequate. The deficit is estimated to be as much as 50%. Therefore, draught animals tend to be in a poor state of health, which affects their efficiency. Animals are forced to over-exert in order to perform normal work and therefore quickly become fatigued. Draught animals in most developing countries are fed on crop residues and leftover stubble from agricultural land. There is no organized cultivation of fodder crops, nor is there adequate land for grazing. Farmers should feed concentrates to draught animals to provide energy for work. However, the common practice is to feed straw from paddy fields, wheat or other cereal or millet. These foods often affect the nutritional status of animals, since the high oxalic acid content of straw removes calcium from the body. This is the commonly attributed reason for the often emaciated condition of animals in countries where rice cultivation is dominant. During drought and famine, animals are usually the first casualty. Depending upon the nature of work, the bullocks have to be fed Normal work is considered as 2 to 4 hours or any work. The next one is heavy work is considered as 8 hours of ploughing, pulling loaded cart, etc. For the animal with 300 kg body weight, 2 kilograms for normal work and 2.5 kilograms of feed concentrate for heavy work has to be fed. If the body weight is about 400 kilos, the concentrate should be 2.5 and 3 kilos respectively. If the body weight is about 500 kilograms, the feed concentrate should be 3 and 3.5 kilograms respectively. For maintenance of the animal, 1.5 kilograms concentrate should be given. In addition, 25 kilograms of green and 3 to 5 kilograms of dry fodder should be given. Now we will see the shelter. While building the shelters, we should consider the ventilation. Shelters should have big open sides that allow moist, foul air out and cool, clean air in. The drainage of the shelter should have good drainage. Wet manure, urine and trampling will turn moderately drained area into swamp. Reinforcement around the rub points, the contact points of the body such as neck or shoulder with the shelter material should not be sharper or rough. Then free access for drinking water should be made. Next we will see the veterinary services and health care. 60 to 70% of time should be allotted to care and management of limbs and neck. Grooming is essential as it increases cutaneous circulation and avoid parasitic infection. Certain epizootic livestock diseases such as foot and mouth disease and rinderpest easily attack domestic bovines. Better veterinary services should be provided to forecast and control such diseases. Now let us see the welfare aspects. Avoid overworking the bullocks. The work should be evenly distributed in such a way that light and heavy work are distributed evenly. We should protect the bullocks from rain and inclement weather exposure. The lean type roof on the side of the farmhouse is better shade for bullocks. Bullocks are normally used for agriculture operations and transport purpose. Some bullocks are ferocious and so control them properly with nose rope or nose rings. Throughout their working life, draught animals are subjected to variety of inadequacies which could be prevented by instituting measures, appropriate and sufficient feed to ensure health and growth as well as energy for work, adequate health care and prompt provision of veterinary services in case of injuries and sickness and to aid resistance to diseases. Appropriate well-fitting equipment for working, prevention of injury while working, we should follow it. Prevention of overstraining, allowing draught animals to rest from work while sick or injured and avoiding putting animals to work in adverse ambient conditions. Then prevention of goading or other abuse during work or training, ensuring observance of laws to prevent the misuse and abuse of draught animals. Allowing animals the freedom to satisfy natural instincts. Prevention of confinement, inadequate stalls and other unfamiliar conditions. Adoption of humane methods for nose roping, shoeing, branding, dehorning, etc. Dry cows are those which are not producing milk. Most cows need a dry period between lactations. Very often, management neglects of these animals may cause decrease in the profit in due course of time. Therefore, proper management of these categories of dairy animals is necessary. The dry period is an important resting period for the dairy cow, where fresh udder tissue is formed in readiness for the lactation, and it provides an important opportunity to rid the udder of many potential pathogens that can cause mastitis. Management of the cow during the dry period must not be neglected, as new infections of E. coli and Streptococcus eubaris in particular can occur during this period and not become apparent as clinical mastitis until later in the lactation. Generally, the period of dry days, or for local breeds it will be 90 to 120 days from the date of drying to the date of calving. For exotic breeds 305 days, and for cross breeds it will be 240 to 270 days. A work bullock, also known as an ox in India, is a bovine trained as a draft animal. In plural we call as oxen, are commonly castrated adult male cattle. Castration makes the animal easier to control. Bulls or otherwise intact males may also be used as draft animals in some areas. Work bullock are used for ploughing, for transport, that is pulling carts, hauling wagons and even riding, for threshing grains by trampling, and for powering machines that grind grain or supply irrigation, among other purposes. Some important aspects of care and management of work bullock are training, management based on size and weight of the bullock, shoeing, proper feed and nutrition, proper shelter and health care. Some of the welfare aspects of the work bullocks are appropriate and sufficient feed to ensure health and growth as well as energy for work. Prevention of overstraining, allowing draught animals to rest from work while sick or injured, and avoiding putting animals to work in adverse ambient conditions. Prevention of goading or other abuse during work or training, ensuring observance of laws to prevent the misuse and abuse of draught animals. Allowing animals the freedom to satisfy natural instincts. Prevention of confinement in inadequate stalls and other unfamiliar conditions.